I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com. And here today with me are Rob McEwen, Chairman and Chief Owner of McEwen Mining, and Michael Mining, Vice President and General Manager of McEwen Copper. Thank you so much for joining me today. Great to have you both here.
Good to be on, Charlotte. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Charlotte.
Really good to have both of you back. And as usual, I think we have a lot to go over. Where I want to begin, as we often do, is with a look at what's going on from a macro standpoint. And Rob, I thought we would start with you and look at what's going on with the gold price. So we've had gold maintaining over 2,000 for quite some time now. And from what I've been hearing, it looks like 2024 will be a positive year for the metal. So I wanted to start with that and get your thoughts on what its main drivers may be in the year ahead.
The biggest driver in the gold market for the last 2 years has been the concern of central banks holding fiat currency. And so there are a number of them, particularly in the BRIC group of companies, are trading their dollars and buying gold as a basis for their reserves. Last year was not quite as large as 22, but quite strong. And this year seems to be starting off on the right foot. So that's central banks providing an underpinning to the market. And then you look at the golds and just, or gold in general, and say, inflation hasn't gone away. There's been massive government spending, and it's debasing currencies. And I think although it's small, there's a growing sense in the market that maybe one has to protect their savings by buying gold. So I think it's going higher.
Do you have any specific price outlook for 2024, or is higher the direction that you're looking at?
I'd say higher. I mean, I have a $5,000 number. It's been around for a while. It hasn't materialized, but the gold's moving in the right direction. And I think the fundamentals for buying gold remain very strong and persistent.
Okay, so let's take a look at another topic in the gold space that I've been hearing a lot about, and that's the disconnect that people are seeing between the gold price, which, as you mentioned, is strong and looking like it's going to continue go higher, and the gold stocks, which are not doing as well as some people might hope that they would do. So I wanted to ask if you've seen circumstances like this before, and when you think we might see the end to that disconnect and see those gold stocks hopefully catch up.
I have seen it before, maybe not as pronounced, but at the bottom of the summer of 2015, gold stocks were very weak. We saw it again. There have been a couple of occasions before that. To me, this is the time to be buying, particularly in the junior space. There's some good drill results coming out, and the values are just dragging along the floor. It seems like everybody's forgotten that junior stocks can have really big runs, and we're in a cyclical business. It's not all straight line up. So, for me, I find this time to be buying, and I have been buying juniors and adding to positions and companies. But you just need to bear in mind it's cyclical, and when it wants to run, there are some very attractive gains to be made. And the stocks are cheap right now.
Well, I think it's reassuring. I'm sure it will be reassuring for people to hear that you've been buying at these times. I know it can be hard for people to bite the bullet and do that. But yeah, I think that's something we'll continue to watch. I want to move over to Michael now and get his macro take on what's going on in Argentina. So McEwen Copper's project Los Azules is in Argentina, and the company recently elected a new president who seems pretty intent on making things easier for the mining industry. I'd like to get your take on what you've seen already and any future changes that may be developing.
First of all, I think it's important to highlight that our project is located in the mining province of San Juan in Charlotte. That province has seen significant mining projects since 2005 of similar size of that what we want to build. And the province has been named consistently as the most attractive in Latin America, higher than Chile or Peru, by the Fraser Institute. And we look forward to build a mine that aims to have a life of somewhere between 27 and 32 years and can run well over 40 years, thinking that we only run through about 40% of our resource base in the PEA that we published in June. So we will have a project that runs over several administrations. Having said that, I think talking about Milei's ideas, there are lots that have the potential to transform the country economically towards the better. His ideas stand for deregulation and less bureaucracy. The decree issued in December last year has seen some headwind in the justice, but its important improvements are still active. The omnibus law, however, that would have seen the investment regime aimed for attracting significant capital into Argentina has seen some setbacks and was sent back from the lower house into the commission. So what we can expect from Milei is that there will be now a lot of analysis going on in his team, trying to get the most important ideas through that will help him transform the economy of Argentina. I think it's good to have a president that has ideas of deregulation and less bureaucracy, but we also need to think that Argentina in the last election has seen presidential candidates that all saw mining as an important pillar for future economic growth and development in Argentina. So the scenario is moving into the right direction in Argentina, I would say.
Okay, I think it's really good to get a perspective from somebody who's on the ground there and seeing what's going on right away. So over to Rob, I want to also ask your thoughts on the regime change in Argentina. Anything you would share there?
I really like what he's proposing. Just reduce the regulations, get the economy moving, attract foreign capital by taking out the delays that are inherent in the system right now. I was down in Argentina recently with Mike and some of our other senior management, and I wanted to walk off the plane with a chainsaw in solidarity with Milei. Just say, let's get going, cut up that bureaucracy, let's move. Because Argentina, I think, is a very interesting model for what could happen in Canada. Argentina was one of the wealthiest countries in the world back at the beginning of the 1900s, blessed with all sorts of natural resources, very similar to Canada. But it introduced a populist government and they kept electing them. Their currency depreciated, savings were destroyed, foreign investment disappeared. And you go, we're on the same route in Canada right now that I fear. But in Argentina, I'm delighted with Milei's victory and want to support him as much as possible.
Okay, so good news for Argentina, maybe a little bit alarming for us up here in Canada to hear that. And so back over to Michael, I know for Los Azules, you're looking to raise about $100 million to move forward at the project. So curious to hear about what the money will be used for and also where you're looking to get it from.
So in our last financing round with Stellantis and Rio Tinto's Newton in October last year, we raised about 130 million. Out of which 120 were dispersed in Argentinian pesos. The funds are used to advance our technical knowledge to feasibility level of accuracy. We have one of the biggest copper resources in the world, according to Mining Intelligence, about the 8th largest worldwide. And we need to increase geological certainty from indicated and inferred to measured and indicated for the feasibility study. And we have, as I said before, this significant resource that we need to convert. We also execute additional metallurgical, geotech, and hydrological and hydrogeological drilling to get feasibility. Currently, we have 20 drill rigs at site and turning and have already drilled about 36,000 meters this season. To compare, last season till May was about 39,000 meters. So we are doing a lot more work this year, and that requires resources. Our target was to drill 45,000 meters, and we're close and have lots of season left to continue drilling. We are currently constructing a pioneering camp and aim for additional engineering work beyond what is required for the feasibility in the second half of this year, all to fast-track Los Azules. Our aim is to present the feasibility by Q1 2025. That's where we are going to use the funds for.
Okay. And sorry, is there anything more you can say about how you'll be raising the funds and how you'll go about getting such a large amount of
Sure.
money? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're having conversations with our existing strategic partner. I mean, Rio Tinto is the second largest mining company in the world, and Stellantis is the fourth biggest car manufacturer in the world. But there are others that have voiced interest in getting into Los Azules too, supporting McEwen Copper, and those conversations are advancing. So I think that most likely we look for private financing going forward, and maybe Rob can later talk a little bit about that as well. So at the moment, existing and potential new partners that have an interest in our what we call future green copper mine.
Okay, so kind of leveraging those existing partnerships. And I will put it back over to Rob. I know we've talked in the past about McEwen Copper potentially doing an IPO. So wanted to check in on that. I'm sure people are interested to have an update.
Thank you, Charlotte. We did think we were going to do an IPO in the first half of last year, but we chose not to when there was private money that was put forward. We financed 3 times now in McEwen Copper, the first at $10 a share, the next at $19 a share, and most recently in October at $26 a share. And we've been able to increase the implied value of that asset from $240 million to just over $800 million. Each time we've looked at doing an IPO, there's been private money put in front that is a lot less expensive than doing an IPO. And currently, the market for, let's call it mining stories, is not strong. And so if there are other people out there with larger pockets and they want to put money into this large asset on a private basis, we're quite inclined to do that and wait until the market improves for copper stories. But as Mike said, we've been able to raise just shy of $400 million in this period of a little over 18 months. So we do plan to do an IPO, but a lot of the money that's been available has been welcomed at this point.
Right. I think when you put it that way, certainly it makes sense the way that you're doing it. And so I know from our previous conversations, you have a bullish long-term outlook on copper. I wanted to talk a little bit about the short term as well, and your thoughts there. We had at the end of last year, the Cobre Panama incident, supply coming offline there. And I think that put into people's minds the precariousness of supply. But it does seem like in terms of copper, it is a story that people are looking at in the longer term. So yeah, your thoughts on copper in 2024, I guess.
Sort of like gold. My thoughts on gold. You put it down higher. We're seeing projections of increasing demand, whether for EV or renewable technologies, or just the growth of cities around the world. So there's projections that suggest its demand is going to be greater than supply. And as you pointed out, the Panamanian situation is unfortunate, but it underlies the geopolitical risks that exist in places. At this point, we don't think that governments are prepared to take away development stories because all the capital hasn't been spent. When something's in production, then they start looking at taxes and other reasons why they might look at it. I think Argentina and the country's a little slow to wake up. They know they have mineral wealth. They just have to attract capital to develop it. And they're on the right track right now trying to foster an environment that is conducive to foreign investment. So I think the price has been, we saw it go up to just shy of $5 a few years back. It's $3.73 today. I think the demand equation is strong. and we're seeing certain production falling away. So I'm quite comfortable. We did our preliminary economic assessment at 375, so it's at about at the money, and that was a robust project. And should it go beyond $5, then it's extremely robust. So we're optimistic.
And if I may add, Charlotte, I just have been in Germany together with 4 governors from Argentina, the mining provinces, plus the Secretary of Mines of the Nations, the equivalent of a mining minister. And we met with German industry representatives as well as German politicians. And what was interesting to see is that in Europe, in Germany, now the people are waking up to the fact that if you want to have certain kinds of raw material supply guaranteed for the future, maybe it's now the time to act. Yeah, it's now the time to invest and not to only depend on the spot markets or the futures that were available. That may not be available in the future anymore. Yeah, there may be a real shortage of raw materials, and one, if you want to get what we call green copper, or copper with a very low environmental footprint, you need to act now. Otherwise, it's gone.
It's really interesting. Thanks for jumping in, because it's definitely interesting to hear that maybe that urgency is finally coming. I'm going to go back over to Rob just for a quick discussion of what's going on with McEwen Mining. I know we've been focusing on McEwen Copper, and there's a lot of excitement there, but we did get the preview of McEwen Mining's results for 2023. I believe production came in within guidance. So I wanted to check in with you on how 2023 panned out for the company. And I know maybe you can't share too much about 2024 yet, but any thoughts you can give?
Well, 2023 made me smile because for the first time in several years, our precious metal mines delivered within the range of guidance that we gave. And so that made me smile. They've stabilized, they've increased production significantly. Both Fox and Gold Bar mines came in inside production. San Jose, which we don't operate, but is a joint venture we have with Hochschild Mining, came in slightly below guidance. But overall, what we guided for the year, we were within the range. Next year will be we have development going on. We're going to be driving a ramp at our Fox complex down on the Stock property. There's exploration at Mexico and construction of a new production facility there. And at Gold Bar, we'll be expanding the leach pad again. So there might be a slight drop in production from this year's, from 23. Costs have been coming down. So generally, we're looking at that and then looking at projects that might complement our operations. As I said earlier on, this is a time to be looking for growth opportunities. The industry, I believe, has to consolidate in order to attract institutional money. And we have to be thinking about how do we Uberize mining, because there's a lot of investors who are not investing in mining, and one has to look at it and say, well, why aren't they? What can be done to attract them? And I think it's all about speeding up the process all the way along the line, from the drilling to the modeling to putting it into production to getting a profit. And that's critical. And pushing our governments to say, hey, if mining's so important, metals are going to be important in the future, like critical metals in Canada, why aren't you marketing the mining industry and saying, look, this is a necessary industry, and you're not going to get it if you don't start changing the perception in the mining space, the general population of mining. It's a responsible industry, and the government has to promote it.
Certainly, that would be great to see. I think the perceptions from the general public are very outdated still. And just to follow up on one point there, would you be looking at acquisition opportunities for McEwen Mining in this environment?
Absolutely.
Okay, good to know. All right, I will put it back to Michael and just ask before we wrap up, are there any final thoughts you would share with the audience, either on what's going on in copper or at McEwen Copper coming up?
I think that what Rob already mentioned, I mean, there's a very interesting demand scenario coming up for copper. And I think that Los Azules is the right project at the right time with lots of additional blue sky, whether it's Newton, Rio Tinto's technology for leaching, or additional exploration. I mean, we haven't found the limits of the ore body, and it's already the 8th largest worldwide. So I think it's a great project for those who are interested. I invite them to have a look at it.
Very good. And Rob, any final thoughts from you before we wrap up today?
The mining sector has been ignored. It's often been said that contrarian investors make money in the market. Now's the time to be a contrarian. Buy what's ignored.
All right. I think those are great words to end on. So thank you both for coming on today to talk about what's going on with the companies and the markets. Always really good to hear from both of you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Excellent.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Of course, and once again, I'm Charlotte McLeod with investingnews.com, and this is Rob McEwen and Michael Betting. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to our channel. We'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a comment below. We'll see you next time.